Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order then at 10 o'clock on November 7th, 2024. As Diana mentioned, before we called it to order, all board members are in attendance. Myself and John Garrity are attending via Zoom, and Candy Burbick is attending in person. Can I please get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. The agenda for today has been approved. Can I please get an approval for the minutes of September 13th, 2024?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Excellent. Approval of the minutes for September 13th of 2024 has been approved. I'm going to open it up to public comments. Diana, since I am not there in person, would you please give me a summary of who is attending in the gallery today?
I shall. We also have online Pat Lowry, local attorney.
Yes.
And then in the gallery, we have Judge Smith, we have Rich Squire from Catholic Charities. Aaron, what's your last name? DeBoard, who's the bailiff with the probate court. Heather Giaconyesi, administrator and magistrate. Greg Barton, magistrate. Norma Thomas, court investigator. Megan Hardy, court investigator. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Kaylee Lafferty.
Kaylee Lafferty.
Wonderful, thank you. It looks like we have a full house today. I appreciate that summary for those of us that are attending via Zoom and cannot see all the attendees. Are there any public comments? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the financial report as presented by Diana.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. I threw 3 different reports at you for 3 different discussions. One is where we are year to date through October 31st. That's the first budget page that you see in your packet. The second one is actually a projection of what we may have in cash carryover at the end of this year. That would be based on monies not spent in 2023 and 2024. And then the last one is the revised draft budget for 2025. So I'll go ahead and start discussing them in that order. With respect to where we are year to date through the end of this year, we're about 83.33% of the way through our budget year, and so far our expenditures are at 82.99%. And the reason that it's so close, not that it's bad to be on target, but there's money that we haven't spent in some areas, is because we made the decision based on need to hire Michaela 2 months earlier. She was supposed to start in July, so we actually have 2 months more of her salary and benefits in our expenditures that wasn't originally budgeted for. But based on monies that we're not spending in other categories, we're fine and we're on target and slightly under budget year to date. Sorry. So that's where we are in terms of expenditures so far this year. And as I mentioned, we do seem to still be on target to have a carryover at the end of the year. So I'm happy to entertain any questions on the current year-to-date budget sheet, if any.
Diana, this is John. If we anticipate a carryover, will we adjust our budget for the coming fiscal year?
I'm getting to that. That's the next page. Well, actually, it's the third page, but let me talk about the carryover. So if there aren't any other questions with respect to where we are through the end of October, let me skip to the second sheet. So this is the budget projection through December 31st. And I asked one of the court's fiscal officers to help me project how much we were still on target to spend through the end of the year for salaries and benefits and other known expenses. Based on that, based on our anticipated mileage reimbursements through the end of the year and other known expenditures, we're looking for a projected cash carryover in the vicinity of $70,004.31, as you see at the very bottom of the right-hand column. Now, you know, there may be some things that come up. For example, I know we had talked in the past about retaining local counsel to represent PCGSB when needed in any contested matter or any matter where I would not be able to participate. We did have such a matter come up in that we were named as a party, or at least our ward was named as a party, in a civil action concerning a trust that she had created. And we were served with that petition, and I did approach Attorney Bob Rischitelli, as we had discussed before, and asked him to prepare an answer on behalf of PCGSB in that matter. It's not going to be a lot of legal fees in that it's not something that we contest. We think it's in our ward's best interest to engage in the proceeding that the attorney who's guardian of the estate has initiated. But nevertheless, because it's not appropriate for me to file the answer, we've asked Mr. Rischitelli to do that. So there may be some additional expenditures for attorney's fees that had not otherwise been anticipated, but we do have $10,000 set aside for that. What I'm thinking is that if we do have a cash carryover, and we will have something for cash carryover, we'll have a better idea by the end of the year. My thought was to keep approximately $20,000 of it in liquidly cash reserves, and then allow the balance of it to be used against expenditures for 2025 if we fall short in getting all the revenues that we anticipate from our other sources. So it's always good to have extra cash on hand because you don't know what's going to come up. So that's why I had asked the court's fiscal officers to tell me how much cash we had on the books as of the end of October, and then looking at that cash on hand and projecting what expenditures we had through the end of the year, what would be left over. So that's there for our discussion as we get to talking about the budget, which is now the third budget page that I draw your attention to. So following our last board meeting and following conversations that we had in a GSB planning meeting with the judge, Heather, and Amy a few weeks ago, we've made some modest adjustments to the draft budget for 2025. First off, I did take off the 12% health insurance increase that I had in the original draft budget because, as Heather noted, the county is not going to have an increase for healthcare costs going into 2025. So we were able to take that off. And then in addition to that, we talked about the additional cases that we had been receiving in the last few weeks. And in light of our current caseload, it appears that we may need to hire another caseworker mid-year next year. After all, even though in my original draft budget I was anticipating we might not need to do that. So out of an abundance of caution, we have put a half-year salary for a new caseworker in this current draft budget. And with the changes that we've made, and I also put the executive salaries back to contemplate the 10% adjustment that the board had requested in addition to the 3% COLA. So those were the changes that were made. And then based on that, if we had increased the Portage County DD contribution to 110, the original budget draft was 100, and the same with Mental Health and Recovery Board to 110 from 100. And that's in contemplation of adding the additional caseworker. We did talk with, get an email from Kelly Jo Jeffries today, who generously confirmed that JFS will be able to contribute $40,000 to our budget next year for anticipated APS referrals. And we have gotten several APS referrals in the last few weeks, I think like 3 in the last month. So that is an ongoing, very active collaboration that we have. So those are the changes in the draft budget. That leaves us with a projected cash revenue of $310,000 and expenses of $327,941.16. So that leaves a shortfall of about $18,000. But again, we haven't talked with the Board of Commissioners yet to see whether they would be willing to contribute $50,000 as part of their budget allocation. I anticipate that Jackie Petty's going to contact me and give me a date this month to come and give a presentation to the Board of Commissioners in support of that request. Also, we haven't finalized what contribution the probate court might be able to make, but that's still on the books for contemplation. So some of these things are still fluid in the revenue area, but based on the anticipated cash carryover and what we're projecting for revenue, I think we can more than cover the $327,941.16 in projected expenses for next year. So I'm happy to discuss these things now that you've had a chance to look everything over.
Diana, this is John. Where are we with incorporating administrative fees to the for-profit nursing homes and some of the other entities we work with and do guardianships with?
Two things that we discussed at the last meeting. One was discussing with the probate court whether we might be able to initiate compensation for our administrative fees in setting up a case, and then possibly an annual fee for the reports that have to be filed that would be on a flat fee basis. That's still under discussion, and I don't know whether that might be an available source of revenue. It would only be in cases where the wards had sufficient estate assets to be able to pay those fees in the same way that they pay the court fees and costs. So that's still under discussion. With respect to initiating a policy sometime in 2025 where we might ask nursing homes that want to make referrals to us to do a flat fee contribution pursuant to an MOU. That's still something to be discussed. It has been brought up with the other GSBs to see if any of them have that kind of arrangement with nursing homes that they get referrals from. The only GSB that has any kind of referral fee from outside agencies is Franklin with respect to the MOU that it has with hospitals, and I guess it gets a fairly regular source of referrals from its local hospital. But that hasn't been brought up yet, John, or how much we might charge for that. I think year to date we've probably gotten around 20 or 23 referrals from hospitals. Out of our total referrals of, I think we're up to like 69 referrals now total. So it's certainly something to be discussed. It just hasn't been approached yet, or how much we might pursue in that regard.
Okay, I thought when we had discussed it last time, we had agreed that we would move forward with that. Is there, I'm just wondering what the delay is, or why we wouldn't charge those. Some of those are for-profit, some are not-for-profit, huge budgets. We're doing them a service, a great service to, go ahead and facilitate that guardianship. Why we wouldn't tap into that revenue resource?
Sure, it was certainly under discussion, but I think the minutes will reflect that we never had any kind of an action item on it in terms of something that the board wanted to formally adopt. I think if that's something that the board does want to formally adopt, we would need a proposal to talk about what a possible MOU might look like, how much the flat referral fee would be, and what a start date for that would be. I think we're early enough where we could probably do a start date of January 2025, but that's something the board wants to adopt and approve it at the January board meeting. But yeah, we hadn't taken any formal action on it yet, John, and to put the mechanics in place.
I do.
Yeah, I personally think it would be very important to move forward with that. And when we first started, we're moving into our third year. When we first started, MHRB, DD, and JFS, and then the Home for Aging, contributed some funds, and we had talked about pursuing grants, pursuing other funding sources. The Board of Commissioners, which doesn't look as, fruitful as we thought it might be, but I really think we should, as we continue to grow and have more needs, we should explore all those options, and especially this one seems like low-hanging fruit.
Okay, I'm happy if the board wants to make a motion on that to draw up a draft MOU and fee schedule, and implementation date that I can bring back to the board at the January meeting. And then if we adopt it in January, we can put it in effect thereafter, if that's something the board wants to consider. Candy, did you have anything to add?
I would like to make a motion to move forward with that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Candy to pursue the draft of an MOU for flat fee contributions from nursing facilities that give us guardianship referrals. And we need a second.
Could we add hospitals to that as well?
We could.
Yeah, I think we should explore the hospitals.
Oh yeah, definitely hospitals. I thought we were including them, yes.
I said hospitals.
Oh.
Yeah, if we're getting, if we had a large
Okay.
portion of the hospitals.
Right, we don't, just so you know, we don't get that many hospital referrals. And sometimes the hospitals just send them to the nursing homes and then we get the referral from the nursing home. So it's kind of backdoor that way. But sure, I can go ahead and follow the model of the Franklin MOU for
Perfect.
hospitals. And then I know we probably had 2 from UH Portage, maybe 3.
Okay.
Some have been from out of county. One was a VA hospital and one was Cleveland. But yes, we can certainly put that in place. Okay, so I had Candy as the moving party. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on that before Amy calls a vote?
Nope, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved.
Very good, thank you.
And Diana, I have one more question about the budget, if I may, or
Of course,
if I
John.
may.
Yeah.
So, we're looking at, I know, the aging funds dropped out, and I don't know if that was because they were just offering us the 10,000 in startup fees. So, DD is at 100,000, MHRB is 100,000, and, GFS is at 40, and then we have the possibilities of these administrative fees, and I would hope we're still pursuing grants, because I know that was originally part of the model of getting the executive director on board, and then that you as executive director might be able to find some additional grant funding. What is the percentage of clients served? And I know in your last outcomes report, you had the clients served, but you didn't have the how many were mental health, how many were DD, and how many were GFS, unless I missed that. But you have included that before. Do you have that information?
As luck would have it, the last page of the packet that I sent out has a slide from our recent PowerPoint at the senior forum
Okay.
that I had updated the demographics. So we currently have 78 public guardianship wards. And of those public guardianship wards, over 50% have a mental illness diagnosis.
Okay.
And about 25% have a developmental disability diagnosis. And then about 33% have a dementia diagnosis. So some of those are in combination. They may have mental health and dementia, or mental health and DD. But just collectively, in terms of the wards that have ADD diagnosis as part of their mental impairment, that's at about 25%, dementia's at about 33%, and mental health is over 50%.
Okay, excellent. And then, thank you. when you guys come to present in front of our board, that's very helpful information for them to understand. I was trying to find that and I couldn't, but there it is, so thank you.
Absolutely. No, I think that is important to show, you know, what those demographics are, and it was certainly persuasive with JFS to be able to demonstrate how many APS referrals, you know, we were assisting with, that then was the rationale for them to give us financial support. So I totally understand how that's helpful to the discussions with your boards, and that's why we included it.
And I don't know if this is the time, Diana or Amy as chair, I have one more item. In regards to presenting to our board, it looks like we will probably not hold a November meeting, and so we would have you present at the December meeting, the second Monday in December. The reason is we have a number of other funding requests that aren't ready to go to the board yet, and we're also waiting on a large federal grant from the state. So we're tentatively looking at meeting on having you come present on December 9th rather than in November.
Okay, and that would be at the same 6:30 time, John?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And that's, I'm conferring with our chair and we're waiting just a little bit to make sure, but that's what we're looking at right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just to clarify your earlier comments, if you look at the revised draft budget for 2025, it reflects requested contributions from MHRB and DD of 110,000, not 100,000. And it does include the JFS $40,000 that we just got confirmation of today. And then I earmarked a projected $50,000 either from Board of Commissioners or the probate court, which we should have more information on by December, by the time I present to your board anyway. So those were the numbers that came up to the projected revenue of $310,000.
Okay, the one I'm looking at, the revised budget I'm looking at says 100. When did you send out the revised budget?
The packet that I emailed out yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
You're probably looking at the original draft budget that
Let's
was.
go back and look at that.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the original draft budget that we talked about at the last board meeting. This is in the board packet I sent out yesterday, and it would be the third budget sheet in that packet.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
Okay. Do you want me to resend it? Do you want me to resend you that packet, John?
Something that came from the 7th with the meeting agenda and the dates.
No, it was sent the afternoon of the 6th, yesterday.
Okay. There it is. Okay.
So it would be the third budget sheet in that packet.
Okay, I see it now. Okay, that's different. I'll have to talk about that. We'll have to discuss that internally.
Of course. And before I do presentations to Portage DD or MHRB, I'll send you the proposed PowerPoint in case you have any questions before I show it to your board.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I should have that available. I'm hoping to get it finalized by the end of next week. Okay. Any other discussions with respect to the draft budget? In order to present these draft budgets to the respective boards, I believe I would need a motion from the board to authorize me to do that as confirmation of what we're trying to put together for next year.
Can I get a motion to approve the draft budget for 2025?
And
Okay.
well,
Sorry.
it's not a final budget, John, it's still a work in progress because until we get information from BOC, MHRB, and Portage DD, and the court, we're not going to approve a final budget until January. But this, I just want your authorization to be able to bring these numbers to your respective boards because I'm going to be doing a public presentation of it. So I think I would need your affirmation that it's okay to go ahead and do this. That doesn't mean that your boards are going to accept them as is, but it's what we're proposing to fund our operations next year.
Okay, yeah, because it's a little tricky because I'm on our board, but also a funder, and this 110 is not something we discussed. We had met before yesterday and had agreed to the original increase to 100,000, and we're recommending that to the board. So it's a little awkward for me to vote to approve this when I can't guarantee my board is going to approve this.
I understand. The challenge was that based on how the caseload numbers changed from the last meeting and in discussion with our advisory group a couple of weeks ago, we realized that it was probably more prudent to add a caseworker halfway through the year in anticipation of the caseload increases, and that had been left off of the original budget draft, which was why the contribution numbers for DD and MH changed from 110 to from 100,000 to 110, because we added the caseworker position.
May I ask one more question before we take a vote? Because I am actually just seeing this for the first time.
Yes.
Our revenue total was $341,000 for 224, and for 2025 we're looking at 370, almost 371,000.
No, let me just clarify, John, because the line you were looking at in terms of total revenue included the in-kind contributions. And so I think it's more appropriate to just look at the total cash revenue. The in-kind contributions are things like the cost of the office space and the cost of court services and the cost of parking that we get from the county. I was basing it on the cash revenue that we anticipated receiving and the cash expenses that we anticipated spending next year. So you're actually looking at the line in yellow at the top for total cash revenue and not the green line of revenue total, because the revenue total included the in-kind contribution.
Okay, and then down at the bottom, the expenses cash only. I guess my question is, we're looking at a budget, a total revenue budget of 371,000, but do we only need 310,000 or 328,000? And I was wondering what the difference is between asking for that additional funding from MHRB and DD and JFS and then what we actually need.
Sure, the total cash.
Diana, may I interrupt you for just 1 second?
Yes, Amy.
And I apologize, but as mentioned to the board prior to today's meeting, I do have to jump off this meeting to attend a hearing. I just want the record to reflect that my vote would be to approve the draft budget as presented. I know you guys are probably going to vote on it hereafter, but I just want the record to reflect that, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to John from this point forward.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, John, to answer your question, the total cash expenditures that we're projecting next year, if nothing else changes, is the $327,941.16. That does not include the in-kind contributions that would offset expenses for next year. So if you look at the two numbers in yellow at the top, the cash revenue of $310,000, if those numbers pan out, and then the cash expenses at the bottom of $327,941.16. Those are the two correlating figures.
Okay. Okay, is it possible for me to abstain on the vote? It'll still pass with Amy, I assume with Amy and Candy, and then just take this back and vet it. That way it can, the approval can go through, and I can go back and do some internal work with my board and my staff.
Sure, John, no, I think that's fine, especially since the final adoption of the budget won't occur until January anyway, and these numbers are not firm until we get the approval of the boards and we get input from Board of Commissioners and the court. So, yes, as long as I've got authorization to make these presentations based on these numbers, I think we're good. So thank you for that. All right, so we'll go
Yes.
ahead and proceed accordingly. All right, any more questions as it concerns our budget prospects for next year? All right, then I'll go ahead and move to our operations overview, which is the next page. Total guardianship referrals that we've received to date are 66. We have filed a total of 62 applications. We've been appointed total in 49 cases. We actually serve currently in 48 cases. One of those is actually a guardianship in Stark County. We have 11 guardianship hearings pending, but one or two of those guardianship hearings may not result in our appointment because family members have come forward and filed an application, and so if the court approves of the family member being an appropriate guardian, then we would not be appointed. That just happened this past week. Whenever that happens, and our application is pending, and a family member files an application, it's up to the court to decide whether the family member is appropriate to serve. We certainly don't contest a family member application ever. It's just a matter of the court to decide what's in the ward's best interest. So there have been several cases where we may have filed an application, but we did not get appointed, or we got removed subsequently because a family member down the road a couple of months filed an application. So we do always strive to be the guardian of last resort whenever someone else can step forward. In terms of active guardianship referrals that we have received but haven't filed an application on yet, there are another 4 waiting in the wings. In terms of assisted outpatient treatment, we have 1 active case before the court in that category. In terms of total public guardianships, the probate court totally, at present, has a total of 78 public guardianships. We are the guardian in 62, almost 63% of those cases. So when we started, of course, we weren't guardian in any of them, and I think there were like 41 public guardianship cases when we first started our operations. It's now up to 78, and we serve in almost 63% of those as the guardian. So it is happening that either the court is referring existing cases to us to become successor guardian, either because somebody is resigning or a family member or existing guardian had to be removed, so we have taken on more of the existing public guardianship cases in addition to the new cases. So that's where we are in terms of our operations for the last 2 months. And then, as I mentioned on the last page, we have the demographics. We have, of the public guardianship wards, like I mentioned, we have 78 total. They range in age from 18 to 98. 50 are over the age of 62, so about 2/3 of our wards are over the age of 62. 41 men and 37 women for public guardianship wards. And then you have the breakdown of what their mental impairment is that results in their need for guardianship. So we really have a wide range of clients. I will say it continues to be the case that our more challenging clients are the clients that have the mental health impairments, just because there's always something that is actively involved in their case management, whether they have to be hospitalized because of medication noncompliance or decompensation in behaviors or challenges in finding residential placements. The mental health cases are the much more labor-intensive cases that we handle. We do have several of our elderly clients that are on hospice care right now. So we probably have a half a dozen wards that are on hospice care, and we're proceeding to make sure that all of their needs are met. We arrange for hospice services, we arrange for prepaid burial plans, and we consult with family members so that they're kept in the loop with respect to how their family members being cared for. But again, those are also more labor-intensive cases because there's a lot going on in the care and case management of someone in a hospice care status. Happy to answer any questions that you have with respect to our wards and the demographics. Okay. So going on from here, I wanted to mention that our presentation for the Portage DD Board will be on November 20th at 5 o'clock at the 2500 Brady Lake Road office. As John mentioned, we will be moving the MHRD presentation to Monday, December 9th at 6:30, and that will be at the MHRD office at 155 East Main Street in Kent. And then with respect to 2025, the last page that I sent this morning was for the board's consideration of board meeting dates in 2025. If you could take a look at that, that's something that we would want to get published as soon as possible, so the court can put those on the calendar. And also to ask Judge Smith whether the court wants to continue to allow us to meet here in 2025, or what the court's feeling is about that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, as long as we just need the dates ahead of time so we can get on the calendar.
That's why I wanted to try and get them firmed up as soon as possible.
I actually get them on the calendar.
I did suggest moving the January date from the first Thursday to the second Thursday because the first Thursday is January 2nd, and I thought that was probably too close to the New Year's break. So moving it to the 9th is what I would suggest. In May, it falls on the first day of the month. I don't know if that's problematic. If it's not problematic for anybody, we can keep it on the first Thursday of the month in May. July, I moved it from the 3rd, which is the day before the 4th of July, to the 10th. Again, just to avoid people being on holiday. September on Thursday the 4th, and November on Thursday the 6th. So how does the board feel about those proposed meeting dates?
That sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Amy.
think those are good.
Amy?
I'm back on, yes, that would be fine with me.
Okay, very good. Then I'll go ahead and make sure that the court has these dates, and then I'll post them to our website as well for 2025 so people know when we will be scheduling. And that's everything that I have today. I don't know if there are any other topics that want to be brought up. No?
Okay. All right, hearing nothing further, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:38.
So moved.
The second, please?
Second.
I don't hear
Candy.
Candy give me a
Candy did a
second,
second.
yes?
Second, yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful, we are adjourned at 10:38. Thank you, everybody.